Hello and welcome back to the AL Central Rundown. I'm Eric, and with me today is.
I'm Lee.
I'm Dan.
Oren.
And I'm Sam.
All right, and it's been another week. We're now closing in a month, so we can start kind of believing in stats, but I wanted just to give a quick glance of what the division looks like right now. So, the standings. After 25 games, Detroit is up a half game over Cleveland, and then it's a lot of bad baseball, followed by the Royals, Twins, and White Sox, all increasingly getting a standard deviation lower. Run differential, not looking great, except for the Tigers, who are plus 30. Cleveland's been flirting with a positive run differential, but are at -5. KC's -23, Twins 18, and the White Sox are 30. Just for a little bit more context, I did just want to show quickly how they're doing just in the American League, and it kind of follows. The Guardians are in the wild card. The Tigers are leading the division, and then obviously you have the Royals sitting in the bottom third. So pitching, Detroit has taken over Kansas City as the best team for pitching ERA. Kansas City's dropped to fourth. Minnesota, Cleveland, and the White Sox, but Chicago's only at 4.26. They're actually 20th in baseball. There just seems to be a little bit better pitching or weaker hitting in the AL this year. And then for hitting, kind of the same story as last week, maybe a little bit more dire. Tigers dropped one, Guardians, and then the last three teams in offense according to OPS, the Twins, White Sox, and Royals, Twins, Royals, White Sox at a pretty bad clip. So that's where the teams sit at 1,000-foot view. Guys, how have you all thought about your teams before we get into the news, looking at those very depressing slides for most of us?
It's been a good week for the Tigers, I'd say. Some very good wins. We just took 2 out of 3 off the Padres, which I was not expecting, if I'm going to be honest. And 3 out of 4 off Kansas City, which is good. So lots of winning recently. We've flirted with being number 1 in the American League, which is a lot better than I was expecting for April.
Yeah, Eric, I hate to contradict you here.
Yeah, that's right.
But I feel pretty good about where the Guardians are now. I know I was pretty vocal at the beginning of the year. They were playing some sloppy baseball, particularly in the field. But back-to-back, I believe they won 10 out of their last 12 or something to that effect. The biggest kind of crowning jewel here is a 2 out of 3 wins against the Yankees here at home that culminated today. It's their first kind of quality series win of the season. And so it's kind of proof of concept that they are potentially kind of returning to playoff form from last year.
Yeah. Oren?
Yeah, White Sox have been the White Sox. I did some quick math today and saw that they're on a 45-win pace. So might like to see them playing a little bit better than they are now, but it's basically what everyone expected. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that Martin Perez injury, and they've got a couple young guys up. So it's been, kind of worth watching, but just about what people expected.
I mean, you're not the worst team in baseball right now because the Rockies are garbage. So there's that at least.
Mm-hmm. I think if the Rockies – I was thinking about this the other day. I think if the Rockies played the White Sox 100 times, the Rockies would win like 60 games. They've just got a much tougher division.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got some
That's
guys.
fair.
They've got Tovar. They've got like Ryan McMahon. They've got, Brenton Doyle or whoever. So they've got.
I think Tovar just went on the IL though.
Oh, really?
Maybe somebody double check me on that, but I think I saw that the other day.
I still feel I don't know. They're both really bad. They're really bad. So
Well,
about all there is.
we'll circle the calendar for when they play this year.
Are they?
Yeah, every team plays
have
each other. So.
Oh, is that? Yeah, I forgot that's the thing now. Okay, yeah, that'll be fun. Hopefully it's in Colorado.
For the 9 fans in attendance that day.
Oh, I was just saying, hopefully it's in Colorado. I love that ballpark. So that'd be cool.
It is. I've never been, but it sure seems to get good reviews. Sam, how is it in KC?
Not a good road trip. 2-8 on the road trip. 6-game losing streak amongst that. Some very frustrating losses. Some losses where um, wasn't even worth turning on the TV. I think obviously it was a difficult stretch to go on the road for 10 games in a row in the month of April, play against the team that they played against. It's not easy. I was saying that, or if they went 4-6 in that road trip, I would have felt okay. I think that as I look at this team and as I look at what they've done so far, I am feeling like expectations were too high. And I'm guilty of that because, I had high expectations. I think that the team, we knew that they hadn't fixed the lineup. We knew that they were going into the year with players that were not major league players. So I think obviously anything can happen. It's a long season, but right now I think that this might be a year that eventually we see a lot of young guys, and it eventually becomes a question about what are they going to do next year. Because I think the pieces
Right.
are in place for them to have a good team. And I do think they have good players on this team, and I do think they have potential. But I think that they have about 85 to 80% of a team. It's just the problem is that the other 15 to 20% is so horrendously awful, and that they're going to have to make some decisions, which they did. And the exact thing that I said was going to happen in last episode is what happened, and we can get into that in a minute. But a bad road trip, I think, really put a damper on. Really made me kind of pump the brakes on what I thought this team was going to be this year.
I'm not saying I take pleasure in it at all, but is kind of funny to see how the life is just drained from your and Eric's, like, compared to the preseason predictions. Baseball
Well,
will
and
do that to you. It humbles you pretty fucking quick.
no, it does, and I think the biggest thing for me is that, it's one thing to have a bad team, but it's another thing to have expectations and then be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because the last time the Royals had expectations for a team, they won the World Series. Like, there's been very
Mm.
few moments in my life where the Royals were expected to be a good team. And so I think that we maybe put our faith into these guys a little bit too quickly. But I think that would be, like I said, a bad road trip is not going to end the season, and we got a long way to go. But I think what we saw from the last 10 games, and granted they have won 2 in a row now, so but what we saw in those 10 games, I think, was pretty uh, very sobering from a Royals fan. So,
I am
Eric,
looking.
how are you feeling?
Well, I'm gonna bond with you, but I do want to if you look at the standings right now and you look at the expanded, Kansas City is 7-4 at home, so they have a winning record at home. They are 3-10 at
And
away
they
from Cough.
and they did the exact same thing last year. Um,
Really?
at least at the beginning of the year, let me look this up real quick. I know that at the beginning of the year, their home road split was terrible. Um,
Okay.
and eventually I think they were respectable. Um,
Sure.
uh,
While you're looking
and
that up too, I
yeah,
also want to
go ahead.
point out they're also while you're looking that up, they're also 4-12 against teams who are above 500, which that's 16 of the total 24 games you've played. You've played against a winning record, so I mean, 10-14 is not pretty, but at least you're losing to competition. Now you should be closer to 500 against those teams
Hmm.
if you have expectations, but it does look like they've had just a rough stretch
Yeah.
of
Well,
teams. But
yeah. So last year at home, Royals were 45 and 36. On the
yeah,
road, they were 41 and 40. Now, granted, teams that they've played on the road are the Guardians, the Yankees, the Tigers. I forgot your team's name, Lee. So they're playing against good teams on the road. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
They'll be
What
on the
is
road
their-
against the
I was going to
Rays
say,
at
what's
the
their
end of the
schedule
month.
look like coming up?
Coming up,
Well,
they've got the Rockies right now, which they're in a rain delay as we speak. And then they've got the Astros at home. And then they go to George Steinbrenner Field to play the Tampa Bay Rays. And then they go on the road at the Orioles, and then they come home for a 4-game series against the White Sox. So I think, as much as I said that road trip told me a lot about the Royals, I think their upcoming, 16 games, you've got the Rockies, who are
Yep.
horrible. You've got the Astros, who are up and down. The Rays, who are probably not going to be that great this year. The Orioles, who are off to a bad start, and the White Sox, who are the White Sox. So I think that, as much as the previous 10 games said a lot, the next however many games are going to say a lot too.
Yep. You got to eat is what you got to do in this
Yep.
next 4 series. So
Yeah.
Twins,
You gotta
I'll agree. Go ahead.
You got to put yourself around 500 at the end of that stretch. With it a
What a
game of
perfect
500.
segue. What a
Yeah.
perfect, because I'm at the exact same way with the Twins. Nothing matters until you get to 500. Right now they're sitting at 8-15, which is 2 games worse than the Royals. Well, a game and a half technically, but the Royals have 2 more wins. It's going to be a month at least before they dig out of that hole, and then you're just hoping Detroit and Cleveland haven't completely run away with the division. The good news is, we'll talk about it later when we go over the schedules, but the Twins play Cleveland. They go from Chicago to Anaheim to Cleveland. If they can somehow beat Cleveland in a 4-game series, that will do a lot. However, this team hasn't looked like they're not playing up to their potential. I do have higher hopes for them, as in I believe they will play closer to their true talent level the rest of the year. However, it's a hell of a hole to dig out of this early in the season. So they've had a couple injuries. They always have injuries. That's nothing new to them, but we'll see what they have.
I mean,
We'll see.
I was watching when the Tigers played the Twins, and I was watching a good amount of the Twin series against the Mets, and you could see it's like half the games the Twins play really well, and then half the games they just don't play baseball. If they could play baseball more in more of those games, because you have games where they're all hitting and they're just pitching well, but then you have games where they just can't hit the ball at all.
And part of it, we'll go into it in the news here in a bit. Well, I guess I can kind of go into it now, but Carlos Correa, I guess, has had something. Not even. I mentioned it briefly last week because it sounded like it wasn't a big deal. Well, apparently he's been dealing with this wrist since the 60-game collapse, the collapse last year. They're not calling it injury. He's still playing, but boy, is he hitting a lot of balls on the ground, and he's not pulling anything. So that might if it's not hurting him, it is hurting his performance. I've mentioned this the last couple of weeks, and like Lee said, when the offense is going well, it's great, like everyone does, right? But they get these long stretches of just no hope offense. Nobody touches first. They little pop-ups, little choppers, just nothing at bats. They've had better at bats in the last couple weeks. I'm more hopeful for them, but like I said, nothing matters until you get to 500. So, right, news. We'll start off with Cleveland because, boy, the Guardians DFA'd Tristan McKenzie, and I knew he was struggling, but I didn't realize he was struggling this badly. Dan?
Yes. So Tristan McKenzie, former first-round pick, 42nd overall, in I believe the 2015 draft, had kind of been a top prospect for the Guardians for a long time, dating back to 2020, 2021, and looked like he might be a real star at one point in time. Had a sub-3 ERA in 2022. I distinctly remember a specific game in Detroit a number of years ago. I think it was in the 2021 season. He went out, pitched 8 scoreless, had a perfect game going into the 8th inning. So the kind of thing you really build upon. Yeah, you remember that, Lee?
Yeah. I thought he was going to be really good after that because I was looking at him. I mean, to be fair, the Tigers' offense wasn't exactly like star-studded by any means, but like he looked really good.
I mean, there was a lot of reason there to believe. Like I said, he followed that up the following year, played a full season in the majors in 2022, had a sub-3 ERA, looked like a potential front-of-the-line guy for a long time. And he was this close to signing an extension with the Guardians at one point as well. And then he came up with an elbow injury that made him see a significant loss of time, I believe, in 2023. And he decided not to get Tommy John surgery. So decided to try to rest and use that to his benefit. Came back, I think made 2 appearances at the end of 2023, came back in 2024, and he just hasn't been the same guy. Not even close. To the point that he was sent to the minors last year, about midway through the year, and never really resurfaced. He was out of options this spring training, so he was on the roster, even though his spring wasn't all that great either. And so he was slated for the bullpen, and it just hasn't worked out. As you can see his numbers here, incredibly poor. And it really came to a head, I believe it was last Wednesday. The Guards were in Baltimore, and we're down 5-1 going into the 8th, and Stephen Vogt opted to go to Tristan McKenzie. And he was abysmal. 4 runs in an inning on 3 hits. Balls were in the dirt to the backstop. Just no command. And that's really what it's been, is no command. And so I didn't mean to kind of dwell on Tristan as much as I have here, but it's just been a precipitous fall for him. And so he was designated for assignment. Like I said, he was out of options, and the Guardians decided that they were looking for somebody else to fill the last spot in the bullpen. They brought up Zach Kent, who is, as far as I can tell, a career minor leaguer. I believe he's 27. His debut was today against the Yankees. Pitched 3 innings, gave up 1 run. I think he had 4 strikeouts, 2 walks. Looked fine. I don't know that he's a long-term solution in any form or fashion. One guy we're going to potentially talk about in a little bit here, Slade Ciccone, was part of the Josh Naylor trade. He probably ends up taking this bullpen spot once he's healthy. He's got an oblique strain that he's working through. So, but Kent is here for the time being.
Have you ever seen a skinnier man than Tristan McKenzie?
So,
I mean, maybe like Victor Wembanyama is up there, but I mean, my God, that dude is about as big around as a stick. Exactly.
One of the things I've heard is somebody with his frame, there's never been somebody who's lasted in Major League Baseball with his frame.
You got to just get more muscle, right? Like,
what about like Chris Sale or Randy Johnson? They were pretty good.
I think he's more slender than those guys, though.
What's his height and weight?
He's like, what, 6'5", 160 was what I saw.
6'5", 165.
Yeah.
When I was writing, I at one point said, talking about this subject, in the offseason, he's got to get more fit. He's got to get a little bit of meat on his bones. This is an NBA reference, so I don't know how many of you guys will get it, but he makes Evan Mobley look like The Rock, which Evan Mobley, the Cavs power forward, is a really pretty slender guy, too, that needed to put some weight on.
Randy Johnson is 6'10", 225. I don't know when that weight is from. And Chris Sale is, let's see.
And I know they fudge a lot of those guys.
6'6", 183. So, yeah, Tristan's skinnier than both of them.
I believe he's that skinny.
Yeah. And those numbers that are listed for height and weight for athletes is very rarely,
right.
They it's aspirational, those height and weight numbers a lot of times. So.
Oren, you're watching the Twins game or the White Sox game right now, right? Is it Vesta on the mound?
I don't know.
For the Twins, he's 6'6" and 185, so he's similar to who was it, Chris Sale. So that also. So as soon as you said nobody lasts in that with McKenzie, I instantly went to Festa, and I have high hopes for him. But so thanks a lot, Dan, you jerk.
No,
I'm gonna think he's gonna fail anyway.
No, he's got 20 pounds on McKenzie, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, and then they also selected Will Wilson. What do you know about him?
So, real quick, last week I talked about Lane Thomas a little bit. He had gotten hit by a pitch on the wrist about 2 weeks ago now. They brought him back. He played a couple games last week and just kind of disappeared from the lineup again. And one reason is he just hadn't been hitting. And they brought up Angel Martinez in his stead last week, and Angel has hit. But it seems that wrist is still bugging him. He was finally put on the IL earlier this week. And in turn, Will Wilson was selected from the minors. Will Wilson was one of the last guys cut from the spring training roster this year. He's not a top prospect guy for the most part, but he's a utility guy, can play a bunch of different positions, particularly in the infield. So I think they're just looking for a little bit more flexibility, somebody can fill in some holes. And it helps that he did look pretty good this spring. So he earned the spot beyond just being a versatile player. He did start today as well at third base. I wasn't watching the game that closely because I was working, so I believe he did not get a hit today. But yeah, he should get some run here in the coming couple weeks.
All right. Very nice. Lee, Detroit. They had a couple moves.
Yeah, so we demoted Ryan Kreidler. Thank God. I was so sick of watching him strike out for everything. And in his place, we've brought up Jace Young, brother to Josh Young. So Jace is a former top 100 prospect. He came up at the end of last season just because, kind of a give the young guys more playing time type of thing. And he's looked pretty good in the minor league so far. He was cut from the major league roster this year because he just wasn't making any good contact at all. But he came up, and so one of the things that was concerning last season was he was not hitting very well. He was not hitting for power at all. But in the minors, he was like a pretty big power guy. But he got wrist surgery like as soon as the offseason started, and that seems to have really helped. Just watching him play at third base, he's been a lot better with his throws to first. And we haven't really seen much. He's only played like 2 games, but hopefully that'll be improved from last season too. So that's going to be pretty exciting for him. He's a fun guy. We had pretty high hopes for him because former top 100 guy. Hopefully he can be the third baseman of the future, or at least for the next year or so, besides the committee that we have at third base currently. So that would be nice. We've got in other news, we've got more injuries in Bo Brisky and Brevia, both going on the IL. So Eric, I don't know if you remember this, but in the first Minnesota game, Brisky he walked off the mound and it looked like he hurt his ankle or something, and then he immediately gave up a home run to Buxton. And Dan Dickerson on the radio was like, "Oh, his velocity looks way down." Yeah, it turns out he hurt his ankle, and it took him a week to figure out he was injured. So hopefully he'll be back soon. Brevia is also injured with triceps thing. Parker Meadows, he has started to throw. That was the last thing to do. So he's still on the IL until the end of May, but now he's doing all of the baseball things. So hopefully he'll be able to come back pretty soon after his IL stint is over. But when we sent down Ryan Kreidler, who was our starting center fielder, who are we going to have in center field, you may ask? Why? None other than Javier Baez. It hasn't. So he started doing this on Monday. He did a little bit of reps in spring training, but he's actually looked fairly good, right? He's just because Baez's problem has never really been defensively. He's been maybe average below it a little bit. He's just been horrendous at the plate. But this year he's been way better at the plate, but he's looked good defensively. He had a really good play today that I wanted to share because it was just a really good play. It had the expected batting average on that was 950, but it was just a really good over the shoulder grab. So Javi's going to be Javi's going to be our starting center fielder until Vierling or Meadows can come back. So
We'll see if it
Yeah,
works
good
out.
point.
After a 10-second ad, I can show the video of Baez, but Google apparently wants to rule the world on this video, so give it a second.
All right.
When they do
Yeah.
expected batting average, do they consider where the outfielder starts?
No,
I'm not sure.
it's
It's just like
the launch angle, velocity, and then where it is caught, or like where the ball lands, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. And then they
That
just
makes-
take
that
like
makes
the
sense,
last. Like the last 10,000 occurrences or something like that, like last 1,000 occurrences of that whatever, or games or whatever like that, and that's the expected.
Yeah. Also,
All right,
keep in
I
mind that
have-
he's playing center field in Comerica, which is one of the biggest outfields in the.
That is a good point.
So he's looked pretty
Not
good.
as-
There's
Not as big as it used to be.
no, they brought it in. So
Pansies.
why would any team want to play in a big outfield park other than Coors because they need it for the elevation?
Right.
Isn't
I don't
isn't
know what
offense
the-
more fun?
well, we do have a lot of triples. So
I
I was about to say, I think
Yeah, you can still have offense in a big ballpark. It's just whether or not you're hitting home runs.
it also attracts pitching free agents too. You need to play in a park that
Oh.
doesn't give up a lot of home runs.
sure.
That's true.
All right. So I have this queued up here. So looks like 4-0 Detroit. Let's see what Javi can do here. Look at the old man run. Yeah, that's not bad. I feel like he's made that over the shoulder catch dozens of times at short.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
see
it's
that one
just a
yet. That's a
matter
nice
of-
catch.
It's just a matter of applying it to the outfield. I
Well, not
guess.
for nothing. Like he runs a ways. Like he tracks this.
Yeah.
He's not
And my
shallow.
biggest
But
thing-
like,
My biggest thing is always these guys are professional athletes, and playing defense in baseball. I don't want to say it's easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's probably the most straightforward thing to do in any of the four or any
Right.
professional sport there is. I think guys can, if you're a professional athlete, you can learn how to play a different position in baseball.
oh, I
So the-
agree. The only thing I'd say reaction time is much more of a big deal. So especially playing center, because if he takes a step the opposite direction as he's already screwed. And it's
Yeah.
more that quick reaction. But yes, to go out and catch a fly ball, yeah, that can be fairly easy. And then it's just knowing when to hit the cutoff man, when to go here. There's a lot more like quick decisions that I think need to be made that make you a good outfield. But yes, in general, you should be able to not be a butcher.
So far, the only criticism Hinch has of Javi's performance is that he takes too long to come into the dugout to do handshakes at the end of the innings. So he's got to speed it up.
Oh yeah, when I was in high school, you had to run on and off the field. If you were big leaguing it out there, oof, you heard it.
There's a reason I stopped playing outfield and slow pitch softball. That's actually not
So
why.
was mine. It was just
range is
so it's like,
crap
it was
now.
just talent for me. I was just bad, so they just told me to stop showing up. Like, don't embarrass yourself anymore.
And Sam, I hear what you're saying, but have you seen O'Neal Cruz play center field?
No, I yeah. In
It's not
general
pretty.
is my point is that I think these guys can for the most part they can learn other positions. I know I've seen some bad defensive play in my day of watching baseball.
Especially in this division, but also I would love to see LeBron James try to play third base for longer than an inning and watch him just crap himself at the first hard hit.
What is the worst defender every AL Central team has ever had to deal with? I'm thinking about like Gavin Sheets or like Andrew Vaughn in the outfield.
Jeez.
Maybe Juan Pierre. He was really bad in the outfield.
I feel like bad defensive
Does
plays
anyone-
isn't something I noticed as much.
Does anyone remember Williams Astudillo? Lots of Tuga?
Yes.
Of course.
Like a cult
Mhm.
hero. He played center field for a couple of innings for the Twins. Name a worse center fielder. For those who don't know Williams Astudillo, he was about as tall as a fire hydrant and looked like his nickname. Had a double chin, and they had him playing center for a couple of games. So that's probably the worst, first example. But Miguel Sano played right field for a couple of games. That was brutal.
The guy that comes to mind for me isn't even Ahmed Rosario. Wasn't a good shortstop, but he was just not a good shortstop. He wasn't necessarily a bad fielder. For what you need at short, he wasn't the best. That's what I'm coming up with off the top of my head.
Did Hanley Ramirez play outfield for you guys?
No, he barely. I don't think he did. At least if he did,
I don't
wasn't
remember
very
that.
long.
Hanley Ramirez played
Isn't that
for the
random
Guardians?
that he was on the Guardians?
Yeah, he was for maybe 40 games. I forget what year that was. Maybe 21.
Wait, you watched Eddie Rosario right near before he went to Atlanta and became a World Series hero. He was bad.
He was
bad for the Twins
as a hitter too. But he might be a good one. Now you mention it. He was also just so lackadaisical out there. Like it wasn't that he was trying and he wasn't good. He just didn't care.
I feel like bad defense isn't really something I notice that much. I mean, the only one I could think of, like Eric Haas wasn't really a great catcher, like defensively. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not like knowledgeable enough in baseball to be able to be like, yeah, that's a bad defender.
Who was the guy that was playing out of position in center field and he flipped off the fans?
Oh God, I don't remember.
Was that
wasn't Miles Straw. Never mind. That was Miles Straw, like going after Yankees fans, but that was deserved. I would have done the same thing if I was Miles.
Yeah,
Straw.
that was deserved.
He was sticking up for Kwan.
Yeah. Actually, Lee, you might not remember this, but I remember a Tigers infield with Prince Fielder at first and Miguel Cabrera at third.
Oh yeah, that
wasn't pretty.
That wasn't the greatest. No, Fielder was okay. Miguel was okay. It was.
I don't know if Fielder was okay.
And JD Martinez.
He was there.
JD Martinez in the outfield as well.
Yeah, I don't. That was when I was like a kid. I didn't like notice defensive stuff as much as I do now because I didn't know what to look for. So
I remember.
Yeah, that wasn't a great infield. I mean, we all still have that great moment of when Prince Fielder stole a fan's nachos. That was great.
Yeah, that was fun.
Legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can think of. The only other one I can kind of think of, but like when defensive, like when pitch framing became a thing, when they were able to track that, Ryan Domit was a catcher. And after like half a season, they realized he was costing the Twins like 60 runs, like an outrageous number. And he never played catcher again after they started tracking that. But I don't think I would have ever noticed that.
I remember Unieski Betancourt being pretty bad at shortstop for the Royals, but that was a while ago, and the Royals have, over the past, 15 years or so, prided themselves on great defensive play, which you kind of have to, which is as big as Kauffman Stadium is. So I can't think of anyone who like really sticks out as a bad defensive player.
I feel like the Tigers are the same thing with Comerica being so big. You have to be a good outfielder.
Castellanos was pretty bad defensively.
Yeah, I was going to mention Castellanos. He famously hates Comerica. It's kind of hilarious. Yeah. I love Castellanos, but yeah, I don't want him back here because he hates playing in Comerica so much. I mean, I miss him, but he did not enjoy being in Detroit because he did not enjoy that outfield.
Yeah.
KC had a very Sam is devastated by this demotion.
Yes. Yes. Let's let me take out my Walmart cranberry mandarin candle and let me light a candle as we hold a moment of silence for MJ Melendez, who was sent down to AAA Omaha this past week. MJ Melendez hit 41 home runs in AAA back in 2021. Ask the Royals GM; he'll tell you all about it. He was also named the best defensive player in the Royals organization that season. And then he proceeded to come up to the major leagues and was one of the very worst catchers, I guess, going along with bad defensive play, was one of the worst catchers I've ever seen. So clearly someone was lying to themselves in our organization. And then they moved him to the outfield, and he proceeded to just be one of the worst players that there's ever been. So I'll set this down now, and we can go over some of MJ's stats. And sometimes on this podcast we get into the weeds of things like WAR and WOBA and advanced sabermetrics. But let's just look at the fact that MJ Melendez in the year of our Lord 2025 played 16 games. He had 52 plate appearances in those 16 games, and he had 4 hits. 4 hits in 47 at bats, 3 walks, and 20 strikeouts. 20 strikeouts in 52 plate appearances is, I mean, like, guys, like, I'm not even going to say that any minor league player could do better than that. You could find a pretty substantial number of college players who could do better than that. Like it was just, and going back to what I said about how bad the road trip was, if the Royals showed up with MJ Melendez still on the team, Kansas City would have looked like the scene from The Last of Us, where everyone in Kansas City is rioting in the streets. Like, you cannot, they could not have shown their faces in town with him still on the team. So they brought Mark Canha back from the IL and they sent MJ down to the minor leagues. He's at AAA Omaha, and last night he went 1 for 6 with 3 strikeouts in Omaha. So it doesn't seem like the result has changed very much since his demotion. And last night, Drew Waters, who is sort of his replacement ostensibly, had 3 hits. And Drew Waters has not been great in his time as a Royal. He's been up and down. But he had 3 hits last night. He had almost as many hits last night as MJ has had the entire year. So, I mean, if MJ is a nickel, Waters is at least a dime. So I think that it had to happen, and I don't know if we'll ever see MJ in a Royals uniform again, because with what I said about him hitting 40 home runs in the minors in 2021, I'm sure there's some team, some hitting coach out there who's going to say to themselves, "Oh, I can unlock. Yeah, he just needs a change of scenery. I can unlock that potential." So
It's looked pretty bad for a
MJ,
while. He's had a negative WAR every year.
yep, MJ, in the words of Wreck-It Ralph, "You're bad, and that's not good. You will never be good, and you're really bad. And there's no one I'd rather have less on my baseball team than you."
I was very respectful to light a candle for that.
He was.
Luke Keeschel just made such a bad error. Did you see that, Eric?
I didn't. I don't have the game on, but
I have it
believe
on.
it.
It was bad. It was really bad.
He absolutely olayed an ending double play, and the Sox took the 3-2 lead.
Oh well.
Well,
I'll
speaking
just
of
wait
bad
till the White
defensive
Sox.
play.
I'll wait until the
And
bullpen.
Yeah, and then 2 other little pieces of news. Lucas Erceg is okay after taking that line drive on the foot against the Tigers last week. He pitched last night, 3 up, 3 down, so good to see him back in the lineup, or back in the bullpen, healthy. And then Jack Caglione, who is the Royals' top prospect, last night had 2 hits against Clayton Kershaw at AA Northwest Arkansas. So Kershaw was making a rehab assignment. So those are the other 2 little piddly pieces of news. So.
Not to one up you, but Ryan Kreidler's OPS plus this season was -10.
Hunter Renfroe has been just as bad, dude. They had to do something. So
Yeah.
it was only a matter of time.
You were a lot more respectful than I was towards Kreidler, so I'll give you that.
Well, you didn't light a candle, so what's the matter with you?
I don't have any candles. I think the fire alarm in my apartment would probably be set off by that. It's very
I only hear
sensitive.
excuses.
It's very fair. You're so right. I should have gotten candles. I apologize to Ryan Kreidler's family and friends.
No, you don't.
I do not.
You would spit on them and insult them to their face.
I'm so glad he's gone. I would drive him to Toledo myself if necessary.
I'm sure he's a very nice human being.
He
Both
probably
him and
is.
MJ Melendez. Salt of the earth type people. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're terrible people. Who knows? I don't know these people. Anyway, for the Twins, I'm so glad you mentioned Luke Keeschel. This is such a great transition because he made a debut and he's actually apparently outside from a terrible error. He's actually looked pretty good. He was the Twins' number 3 prospect. He is a global top, I believe, 50 to 75 person, depending on what list you want to look at. You'll see he has a 60 out of 80 on the hit or the 20/80 hit score. He'll hit the ball. He's just an all around good athlete. That so far has tracked his hit chart. He's kind of hit the ball all over the place. What he has done well is he just seems to be have life. Like, I don't want to use like the cliche, he's the spark of the team, but like he kind of has like a swagger about him, which you don't really see from the Twins a whole lot. And Oren, you can tell me if I'm off base here, but like the way he acts and like just like his not aura, but his vibes, I guess, kind of reminds me of a Tim Anderson, like a young Tim Anderson, kind of cocky, kind of like he's gonna, I don't know, make silly plays sometimes. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base there.
A little bit. He is just like such a gamer. Like, will put 100% into everything.
Yep.
There was like that slide at home plate, especially showed that.
Yes.
Was that his debut game? I don't know, but he
yes.
you know, really whipped it around the bases, and then he made a really cool slide into home. And you could and he was like super pumped up after, and you could tell like, okay, this guy loves baseball. He loves being good at baseball, and he's going to give it his all. So that's what you like to see. You know, it's a little concerning when a prospect gets called up that you don't really know about, and they look like they're kind of, you know, a little like lackadaisical or too cool to be there or anything. You don't get any of that from him.
Yep.
I like it when baseball players clearly enjoy playing baseball.
Yeah.
Like Miggy was like the
what I will
child
say
for that, but like baseball players who like playing baseball.
I like it even more when they clearly hate playing baseball.
Who mentioned Luis Robert?
Yeah, Luis plays like he just hates baseball. Pretty much a lot of people on the Sox play like they kind of hate baseball. They probably just hate the White Sox.
The interesting thing about Keeschel is he's playing second base right now because he's actually recovering from Tommy John surgery. He's actually a center fielder, and seems to be a decent one, but he's also on a team that has Byron Buxton and Harrison Bader on it, and also Sean Christie Jr. is also a rated very good outfielder, so he's probably going to play the infield most of the year anyway, but if he just stays at second base for the next 10 years, I'm not going to be sad about it because he's fast. He just seems to be giving some life. And also, he has great hair. If you ever watch Luke Keeschel, his helmet flies off at every chance, and he has like the Brian Dozier hair flip. So that's the exciting thing for him.
He's a handsome cat. One of the guys the White Sox just called up, Chase Meadroth. He looks like the doll from Chucky. He's like just a very unsettling to look at.
Well, I mean, just to be a White Sox, there's some inherent evil in it, so it makes sense that he looks like a murdering doll. Just other quick notes. Pablo Lopez is probably going to be activated for the Angels series in 2 games. He just had a rehab start, looked pretty good. Brock Stewart returned in the series before this. I forgot who they played, but Atlanta, where they got swept. It was a fun series, let me tell you. He can be a big return. He's probably never going to pitch back-to-back because he's had huge injury concerns over the last couple of years. But when he has played, he's been very good. And the best of all the best news, Royce Lewis is running and possibly going on a rehab start in the next week. If he doesn't, depending on how he runs the bases, I think in the next day. So if they can get him back and the team isn't completely sunk, there might be some hope, but again, like I said multiple times at the start of the year, or at the start of this episode, until you get to 500, not a damn thing matters. That's the Twins, so not the most cheery news. But, not that we're going to switch to cheery news, but Chicago, kind of a bummer. Martin Perez, hits the 60-day IL after we praised him last week. Diagnosed with a flexor strain. That just sucks.
Yeah,
Oren,
I
what do you
mean,
think?
he had a nice couple of starts, and then a pretty bad one. Um, we're hoping to get something from him at the trade deadline. Now it looks like he's going to be out for most of the season. So, throw your hands up. Maybe they'll go and get someone like a Tristan McKenzie type who maybe a change of scenery could help. Maybe they'll just I know Bobby Dahlbeck took his roster spot, but yeah, they moved a reliever to pitch today. They had Bryce Wilson going for them, so they might just
Yeah.
keep using him as a starter. They might get another one. They might, it doesn't really matter.
I
But
didn't
Isn't
pull
a
his.
one-year deal?
Sad to see. He seemed
I
like a
didn't
good
pull the stat. I didn't pull the stats for Bobby Dahlbeck, but I just was looking at it through Baseball Reference. He has been horrible for like 3 years. He was good in like 2022, and then he has been like, I think he had a 45% strikeout rate last year. Like horribly bad results.
And
But
is
maybe
he?
he.
If you're looking at the page, is he like? Doesn't he always like rake in the minors and then suck in the majors, or is he bad
Oh,
in
I
the
don't
minors
see that. I
too?
would believe it. I would absolutely believe that because he
I think
keeps
he's like
getting
one of those
chances.
guys.
Yeah. But for we're the White Sox. Why not? If he has any chance of being an impact, why not?
Yeah. And then, as we said, Chase Mydroth, still don't know how to pronounce it. He's come up. He's had a very, very high walk rate in the minor leagues. And in his debut, he walked 3 times and got a hit. So that's kind of exciting to see him play. As we said, he's a weird dude, weird looking guy. But if he's a gamer, then we'll take it. We need those types. A little bit of that, the guy on the Twins energy, the one who Luke Keyshaw. What
Keishel?
is it? Keishel.
Keishel?
Yeah, he kind of like plays the game hard, runs the bases hard, all that stuff like him. So you like to see that. And then Edgar Quero, the other guy who was called up, he's looked pretty impressive so far. So it's nice to have a couple of positives in this sea of terrible baseball that is the White Sox these days.
Right. We're gonna talk about him in a bit. So Quiero's playing catcher right now. It doesn't look like he's ever been a great defensive catcher. Not just look because his sliders on Baseball Savant don't matter. He's played like 8 games, but I think Montgomery or I can't remember, whoever they got from the Crochet trade. We'll talk about in a minute. Looks like he's going to be the long term, but this might be a first base option. Certainly, those look pretty good for the first week or so.
Yeah. With Sox fans pretty ready to move on from Vaughn, there should be a first base vacancy by next year. You can DH too. Kyle Teal is the much better defensive catcher, and the more well-regarded prospect of the two either way. So there's some talk, maybe we'll trade them because if Corey Lee keeps playing well, then it might be more value if we spread these guys around in other positions of need, but hopefully they pan out, looking good so far.
Right. All right. All right. Well, that's it for the news, but we only had one series that we're going to talk about because we've been saying that the Twins and the White Sox are playing now. They've played one game. The Twins won. Byron Buxton made an incredible catch. It was phenomenal. Go back and look at the replay. I didn't actually pull it, but I should have. But the series we are going to talk about, KC played Detroit in a wraparound series last week, and it did not go Kansas City's way. So Sam and Lee, what did you think watching this?
I mean, Dan can give his opinion on this series too if he wants. Look, it's another one of these series for the Royals where they were just outclassed. The first 2 games they hung around for the first couple innings, and then the Tigers scored some runs, and it was over. Last game of the series, going up against Tarek Skubal. Historically, the Royals have done pretty well against Skubal. You win in extras. So you hang on to save the series in the last game, and it's very reminiscent of what I talked about with the Guardians series, where you just get you just kind of have some bad games to start the series, and then you have to save yourself in the last one. So, not a lot of positives out of the series for me. I think that while it's nice to not get swept, it's also a series that the bullpen, which is good, allowed the Tigers to take the game to extra innings, and ultimately they were able to win that game. But first couple games were really pretty poor, and when you look at the first two games, at the very least, 1 run on 7 hits in the first game, 3 runs on 10 hits in the second game, and then 1 run on 6 hits in the final game, or in the third game rather. So that's kind of what it's been for the Royals this year, and it's not. This is gonna be one that they're gonna have to move on from.
I was reminded how annoying Bobby Witt is to play against because it seems like he gets on base every time. It's
Well, that's great, but when he's the only one who's getting on base at a consistent rate, that's not going to do it for you either. So I think that that's part of the problem with this Royals team is that so much of it is Bobby Witt Jr. is going to save us, as it was with this previous season of the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is going to save us. And sure, that'll work every now and then, but eventually, you get to the Super Bowl and you're playing against the Eagles, and nothing's going to save you. So it's you can't have a one-man team in any sport other than basketball. So
Fermin was looking pretty good.
Fermin looked good last. Fermin looked good last night. He's another guy who's had a good year last year. He's off to a slow start, but last year he came into the game, or last night came into the game in the ninth inning as a pinch runner for Salvi, scored the tying run, then had a game-saving pickoff throw at third base, and then had the walk-off hit, and that was in 2 innings. So pretty productive little game for Mean in the ninth, 10th, and 11th innings. But you know he needs to do more, and that's the case with pretty much every player on the team. So, but that's enough doom and gloom for me. I can let Lee go ahead and talk about the Tigers and
Yeah.
their successes.
Wait, before you
That's
do, what are Bobby Witt Jr.'s numbers to start the season?
He's off to a good start. He has hit the ball well. He's not lighting the world on fire. I say that because he lit the world on fire last year. He's not lighting the world on fire to the same degree. He's starting out the year. He's slashing 308, 381, 473. So good for a 830, 853 OPS, leading the league in doubles. So he's off to a good start. But if he weren't off to a good start, then there would be a problem because he is that guy. So he's having a good season, and you expect him to have a good season. But I think that his play, it's going to be there, but you need play from the rest of the guys in order for that to you know in order for that to be successful.
On pace to have a very high WAR season once again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he will probably either lead or come close to leading the league in WAR. If the Royals have if they can right the ship and they can win 85 to 90 games. I'm sure he's going to have a fighting chance at MVP. He would have been MVP last year if it hadn't been for, Judge having probably one of the best seasons that a player has had in a while. So I think everything is kind of in place for him, and I know that. Look at that baseball savant page. I know that I know Eric highlighted his defensive WAR being negative -0.1, but I think that'll be corrected because he's had a couple errors to start the year. But I mean, there's nothing to say. You just look at all those red bars, and that's about all you need to know.
Yeah, he's a
For
dog.
context, I highlighted that because that couldn't be right to me. That he was negative -0.1. So like I wanted to look at Savant, and yeah, he's 95th, 3 outs above average, which is phenomenal at this point of the year. So
Yeah,
I wasn't doing that to
He-
like put any shade on Bobby Witt.
No, 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 no. Like I said, he's had a couple errors to start the year, which has, when you have a small sample size, especially with defensive play, it's going to be that way. But yeah. So Bobby Witt Jr. is, he's as good as he is, and he has, all the tools, and he's, a top, you know, 3 player in MLB probably. So, yeah.
Yeah, and
All
that's
right,
to
Lee, go and
dance on your
brag about
grave a
another
little bit.
series you won.
Yeah, so I made a lot of notes. So I wanted to make sure I got to my point. So wanted to point out Torque's stats for this series. He was 5 for 14 with 1 home run, 2 doubles, and 8 RBIs. So he was really good this series. Like he's been all season apparently, I guess. So I wanted to throw some more shade at the Royals broadcast because I still think it's hilarious. So, for those of you who are not aware, during the first game, the Royals broadcast were talking about the Tigers, and they had a clip where they said, "Oh, their weakness might be starting pitching." So they've been getting dunked on for the past week, which is hilarious. Now that Tigers currently have the best ERA in the American League, so Olsen and Mize in particular were very good in games 1 and 3, respectively. I would say this is the best outing we've seen from Olsen this season, except today he pitched an absolute gem, but that was his best in the season at that point. Mize on Saturday, was probably one of the best starts of his career, just looking really good in terms of our pitching. Job had another good outing. He gave up 1 run to start off the game, but then really got into the rhythm, had 5 strikeouts. Pretty nice. I wanted to point out Dylan Dingler. He threw out Bobby Witt stealing, which I thought was very impressive because he also threw an absolute bullet to second. It was like the hardest throw by a catcher in the season so far, or something like that, I think. But I wanted to bring up Kenta Maeda because I'm really sick of him. Because I want to paint you a picture. It's the second game. It's going into the 9th. The Tigers are up 7-1. Kenta Maeda comes in. He has 6 runs to work with. He exits the game, giving up 1 run. The bases are loaded, and there's 1 out. And then I think it was Canley who came in. He walked in a run, and now suddenly the game is 7-3 with the bases loaded, and there's still 1 out. So that was but so luckily escaped that with winning 7-3. But like, I mean, when you can't give a guy 6 runs to work with, what are you gonna do? He's just here to
that's
up innings. But like,
that's why they bring him in with a 6-run lead.
yeah, but you can't even do that because he left with 5 runs, and there was still 2 outs to go, and the bases were loaded.
Did they win that game?
He has
They
a
won that game.
7.5 walk per 9.
Oh, he has no command. He just keeps throwing balls. He can't throw strikes. But
well, I'm not too sure about the whole thing about the Royals pregame show because I don't watch a lot of the pregame and postgame content for the Royals, to be quite honest with you. But I think my explanation would probably be that Joel and Monty have to talk about something for 30 minutes every day. So, someone didn't have a good start the other day. Let's say their weakness is starting pitching. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's just
I actually don't mind Joel Goldberg and Jeff Montgomery. I think they're both pretty decent at their jobs. Joel Goldberg has lost like 50 pounds this offseason, which is very interesting to see. So I think I would like to know when he took his first shot of Ozempic. Yeah, I think I can't explain that because I don't watch a lot of the pregame and postgame shows for the Royals.
yeah, yeah. I just wanted to mention that because it's really funny, and they've been getting dunked on for the past week because there's like Tigers PR made like a tweet like, "Oh, the Tigers are the only team in the American League to have 4 pitchers with an ERA below 3 or whatever the hell it was," and then the Tigers retweeted that with, "I think our strength might be starting pitching." So
Mm-hmm.
that was
There have been
Well,
a
you know what?
few jinxes this season. There was also the Red Sox. We're talking about commentators talking about the White Sox, and then there was this crazy game at Wrigley between the Diamondbacks and Cubs. The Diamondbacks scored 10 runs in the 8th inning, and then the Diamondbacks tweeted, "The 8th inning hates to see us coming," and the Cubs scored like 6 that inning and retook the lead, and then the Cubs quote tweeted that and said, "The 8th inning hates to see us coming." Yeah, it's fun. It's
yeah,
petty.
it's fun.
Well, I would say that the Royals are currently making every uh, team's starting pitching look like a strength. I did a little calculation this afternoon. The Royals this season, if you take away the game where they scored 11 runs against the Brewers, they're scoring 2.5 runs a game. That's pretty bad. And granted, you can take away any team's highest scoring game of the year, and that will probably put a significant dent in their run
The
scoring.
Yankees.
But exactly. It was what
Cincinnati.
24 runs that Cincinnati scored against Baltimore the
Yeah.
other day.
Or the Cubs had that one game where they beat the Dodgers 16-0 or whatever it was.
Yeah. Again, you can take away outliers all day long to make teams look bad, but still, even including that, the Royals are scoring less than 3 runs a game. So it's just, it's like I said, we knew that they didn't fix the lineup, and the guys who you needed to see play well have not. So
Yeah.
series like the ones the Royals had against the Tigers, when you don't, and I'm not like this is I don't know what the solution is or was, because look, the Royals tried to go after Santander. Santander has been off to a slow start. The Royals tried to go after Profar. Profar got busted and is suspended for 80 games. So I don't pretend to work in a front office. I don't pretend to know what the solution is, but I know that the solution has not been found. So
Yeah, I keep going back to the Kenta Maeda game because I totally forgot about this. But so it was bases loaded, 2 outs, 7-3 game. Then there was a hit to the outfield, and Zach McKinstry made a fantastic grab. But if he doesn't catch that ball, it's a bases clearing double. The game is 7-6 in the top of the 9th. So I had to keep going back to that. But if we can't bring a guy in with 6 runs, and when are we going to bring a guy in? I'm hoping the plan is Alex Cobb gets healthy and then we DFA Maeda. But
Good luck.
yeah, we're paying him $10 million this year. He's given up runs every single outing he's had this so far. We had the game against the White Sox. We're leading 7-0. Kenta Maeda comes in. He gives up a run. We're playing against the Brewers. We're up 9-0. Kenta Maeda comes in, pitches an inning and a half, and he gives up a run. It's just exhausting. I'm tired of watching him give up meaningless runs. That's the end of my rant.
well, and I think that's the ultimate test of what a front office's stomach is. If you wanna test a front office, then have a guy who's getting paid a lot of money playing like shit and see what they do, right? Because a couple years ago, the Royals had Hunter Dozier on their team. Hunter Dozier was one of the worst players in MLB. He had one good year. The Royals signed him to an extension, and then he was terrible. And John Sherman, because I don't know if the extension was signed. I think the best his career year was 2019, and after 2019 he signed an extension, and 2020 was when Sherman bought the team. Sherman DFA'd him a couple years ago, and we had to pay him $17 million. And I think for me that was a big moment of like understanding that like this is a different organization because they had the stomach, they had the stones to DFA someone and have this dead money and show that they were serious about having good players on their team.
Yeah, we'll see because this is only the second year that Scott Harris has been GM, so we'll see. I mean, I will give them the only times Maeda has been playing has been when we're either losing by a lot or winning by a lot. Like he made his other appearance was when we were losing to the Twins 5-0 or whatever it was. I think that's the only outing he might. I don't think he gave up a run that outing. It's like great, thanks. You didn't give up a run. We're already down by 5, so that's something at least. But like he's only been
Shocking.
He's only right. he's only come up when like and pitched just to eat innings. We were already up by 6 or whatever. But like. He almost blew the game on Friday. So,
Hey Eric, can you do me a favor real quick and bring up Hunter Dozier's baseball reference page?
Oh, goodness.
Because I just looked it up and I really want to share this with the group.
The only Dozier I acknowledge is Brian Dozier, the GOAT.
Yeah, I know.
That's right. Best hair in baseball. All right, where are we looking at?
First thing, I don't know if you guys could see this. I just feel like this photo, go to the top. This photo really looks like a mugshot.
Yeah, it does.
That really looks like a mugshot.
I think it's the gray background that really sells it.
I think, yeah. I think it's like the way his head is tilted.
I mean, he was so happy in the minors and then at the Angels.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, scrolling down to his stats, you can see that 2019, 2.7 WAR, 2020, 0.4, and then 2021, negative 2.4, negative 1.1, negative 0.3. So, like, yeah,
negative 2.4. That's impressive.
He was bad. So,
did they play him at third in 2021? Why do I not remember that?
I believe they did. He played all over the place. 9 is what? Right field?
Yeah.
Right.
So he played a lot of positions. But outside of that, that dude was just, yeah. And then, like I said, he was released in 2023 and he still had $17 million owed to him. So, but yeah, Hunter Dozier, bad player, one of the worst Royals of all time.
Negative 2.4 WAR is seriously impressive considering he hit 16 home runs that season.
Like, what's the lowest WAR anyone's ever put up?
That's a good question, and I'm gonna look that up while we continue discussing.
Yep. That's an evil Google search. That's an easy Google search. I know the Twins had a really bad second baseman named Louis Rivas that put up like negative 2 point something WAR in a season, which is real hard to do because they stopped playing you after a minute. But while you're looking that up, we did want to. So that's the series. Detroit won the series 3-1. We did kind of want to take a moment as Sam, and let me know when you got that. Who has the negative WAR, but we want to look at some off-season decision front offices made, and a month in just to kind of check in and see how they're doing, knowing that all of these can change. So, first off, we're going to start off with Cleveland, who kind of had a nice cause and effect going on with their roster, that a few different moves. So, Dan, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with, there was a particular Saturday this past winter where every first baseman that was on the market found themselves a new home except for Pete Alonso. And a big part of that was the Guardians trading Josh Naylor to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And on the same day, simultaneously signing Carlos Santana in order to replace him. So that's the main kind of glad you did that.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that not the right picture? Is that
Looks just like
It took me like 5 seconds
my bad?
before I
Is
realized
that
that was me.
not for nothing? Like, that's not far off.
I was like, why do they have such a weird photo of him? And I was like, oh shit.
That's quite the resemblance there.
I thought it was like
I was trying.
at first.
If you go back 10 minutes in this and you see me looking at anywhere but you guys, it was me trying to like screen clip Oren on the screen and like, nope, I can't have that face and I can't have that. Like,
I would have to like zigzag like they teach you in an emergency situation.
anyway, back to talk.
Yeah, with Naylor and Santana, and Manzardo is a Kyle Manzardo is a big part of the formula here, where the decision was made that his future was part of the first base DH situation for the Guardians as well. He's been off to a decent start. Powers come more so than the average, interestingly, which he was kind of a hit tool first kind of guy in the minors, but he has perhaps been selling out a little bit more, driving the ball, and has largely been the Guardians' cleanup here so far and fairly successfully. To the actual comparison about Naylor and Santana, the hope here in Cleveland was that in bringing in Carlos Santana, you were going to have a better first baseman defensively, and most of the way in terms of offensive production in what you had with Josh Naylor. And kind of cobble those things together, you actually would end up with a more productive player overall. Well, so far the difference between Naylor and Santana has been night and day, and mostly on the offensive side. As of when I took the numbers, which was a couple days ago, I did this after Monday's game, so they might be a little bit off of what's on the screen. Naylor's WRC plus through Monday was 161 to Santana's 78. Significantly different, a whole other world. Naylor's had 6 doubles and 4 home runs in 22 games. And really his contact game has come back in a way that he had lost it in the last year or so in Cleveland. The Guardians front office is big about pulling and lifting the ball. And I think Naylor had been on that train in his last year or so with the team. And it looks like he's kind of got back to the basics to the way he was. I believe it was 2023 when he hit 300. He's kind of more on that side of things right now, hence the 6 doubles. His K rate and his whiff rate are 93rd percentile. So he's been fantastic out in Arizona. And on the opposite end of things, Santana, 2 doubles and 2 home runs in 22 games compared to 6 and 4, respectively, for Naylor. And the biggest thing is Santana just seems punchless. That's what he's been a great on-base guy in his career. One of the best batting eyes I've ever seen, having seen him for such a long time. And he's not walking to the same rate. He's got the lowest average exit velocity of his career, the lowest walk rate of his career. He's just not threatening with his bat. The pitchers aren't having to respect and actually pitch out of the zone because they're knocking the bat out of his hands. And that was not kind of what the Guardians were hoping for, considering he's hitting in the middle of the order, 3rd, 5th, etc. But it has been a noticeable and significant difference between the two in terms of offensive production. The things with Naylor is, that's his best production so far in terms of pace for a season. Can he keep this up? The thing that stuck out to me is he's actually walking more than he's striking out, and that's kind of shocking. I don't know that that's for real for very long. And the other thing is, Arizona is a great offensive environment, so that's probably helping him. But will he survive a long, hot Arizona summer? Conditioning has always been an issue. So just to kind of culminate with those two guys, the fielding aspect is what kind of the Guardians were hoping for as well. There's a difference of 1 fielding run between the two right now. Santana's been worth 1 fielding run. Naylor's worth 0. So that, in eye test wise, more balls towards second base are being fielded by the first baseman this year. I feel pretty confident in saying that. There is a little bit more mobility there, but it isn't making up 90 some points of WRC plus. So hasn't been the situation that the Guardians have been hoping for so far on those two guys.
So,
Go ahead.
sorry, I'll just quickly so we can be done with this. Finding the lowest single season WAR was actually tougher than I thought it would be. I found a bunch of stuff from like the 1800s and like early 1900s, but I can tell you at least Steve Blass in 1973 had a negative 3.9 WAR, and he was a pitcher. And oddly enough, the previous season he was an all-star and finished second in the Cy Young voting. And then Jerry Royster had a negative 4 WAR in 1977, and that's the lowest-ish for a position player that I could find.
I'd imagine
So-
the All-Star and the Cy Young or second place finish or whatever is the reason why they gave him such a long leash, enough time to lose that many games for him.
I would imagine that's probably part of it. But also going back to the 70s, awards voting was a little bit different back then than
Oh,
it is
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was.
Just a little.
But I can tell you that year, the previous season, Steve Carlton won the Cy Young Award and had 12.1 wins above replacement. So
That's insane.
I think they got that one right.
Bit of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Jerry Royster here. We're just looking at his baseball reference page. He did nothing well. He didn't steal well. He stole 28 bags. Not that they cared about caught stealing, but he was caught 10 times, which isn't stellar. He didn't walk.
Mhm.
He definitely didn't slug.
Yeah.
Oofta.
And I mean, like, those numbers don't jump off the page as being like the worst I've ever seen. But yeah, I think WAR can be a little bit, WAR
I bet
can
it's
be a
the
little
be-
bit fickle sometimes.
I
mean,
bet
the
defensively
46
he was horrible too.
The
So
46
typical
OPS
that the White
plus.
Sox picked him up when he was 34 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Did they trade for him? 87. Good year for the
Yeah,
Tigers.
there would free
Well,
agency would have been a thing by '87.
Yeah, it looks like they traded him to the Yankees. Halfway through.
The Yankees wanted him. Good for them. Funny.
And then he was released
Oh.
the next year anyway.
Funny. Oh, baseball reference. Rabbit holes can be fun.
Yeah. So anyway, continue to cook, Dan.
Thank you, sir. Just to kind of close up the Naylor Santana thing, Slade Ciccone was actually the prospect pitcher that the Guardians got for Naylor. He, like I mentioned when I was talking about McKenzie earlier, he's got an oblique strain. He has not pitched at any level so far this year, but the trade in aggregate can still be well worthwhile depending on his outcome moving forward. Moving off of them, their next move of kind of high profile for the Guardians this winter was the trade of Andres Jimenez. And this was a bit of it was an unofficial 3-team trade where the Guardians traded Jimenez to Toronto and received Spencer Horwitz for him, and then went ahead and flipped Horwitz to Pittsburgh for Luis Ortiz. I'm going to start with talking about, though, Arias's replacement, or Jimenez's replacement, Gabriel Arias at second. We talked about him last week. He's off to a fantastic start offensively. Has been a huge offensive boost, which was exactly what the Guardians were looking for in this case, out of second base, where Jimenez had a really strong 2022 offensively, actually finished, I think, 6th in MVP voting that year, and has never been able to replicate that year since offensively. To compare them again, I took these numbers after Monday's games. Arias's WRC plus is 138. Jimenez's is 88, which is about what we expect out of him year to year since that 22 season. Their slug is probably the biggest kind of noticeable difference. 493 versus 349, about 150 points between the two. And this is despite, I remember like the first week of the season, people were making a big deal because Andres Jimenez hit like 3 home runs. And everybody went, oh, the Guardians made a terrible move. Look at this, cheap cheap. They did the wrong thing. Well, Jimenez has been what he was the last 2 years in Cleveland. Everything I said about Arias last week still stands. He's hitting the ball hard. He's taking more pitches, getting a good counts, walking just enough. And on Jimenez's side, he is driving a little bit more. His isolated power last year was abysmal, and is back to where it was around 2023 now. Like I said, he's performing about how he has in the past, but he's hitting a far and away worst 198 so far, which may be luck. His expected batting average is 252. But I know I keep saying it. In short, Jimenez is about the same hitter he's always been, where Arias has had the opportunity to kind of flourish, and they've basically been the same in terms of feeling. So ultimately, it feels like a gain for the Guardians in this regard. When Arias wasn't necessarily always plan A for second base this year, they've kind of fallen into a really good scenario there. As for Ortiz, the Guardians made this trade to add depth to their rotation. They knew they needed to do that this winter. It was one of the biggest pitfalls of the team last year was not having guys that could start and pitch into the 5th, 6th, 7th inning. Ortiz is the 4th starter right now. He started today. It didn't go great. I think he pitched into the 5th inning, gave up 4 runs. Again, my numbers don't include that. But he's averaged 5 1/3 innings, and his ERA is 5.48. Not great, but his FIP is about a run lower, 4.59. The potential is there. He looked really good against the Royals about a week ago. I know Sam said a minute ago the Royals are making everybody look good. But 5 2/3, 1 run, 1 hit, 10 Ks. So in comparison, the 4 starter this time last year for the Guards was Tristan McKenzie, who we just talked about at the start, being DFA'd. He was averaging 4 2/3, 5 ERA, 6.61 FIP. So, and he walked more than he struck out, by the way. The real life numbers are similar. The ERA are similar. The bones underneath for Ortiz feel a little bit better. There's potential there. There's a bit of a proof of concept coming out and beating the Royals, and the FIP is lower. To be fair, it's yet to be seen, but it always felt like it was going to be a little bit of a transition with Ortiz acclimating to a new organization, a new league. That trade is a success if Luis Ortiz is pitching in a playoff game this year. So yet to be seen on that, but that's the kind of move it's looking to be. And then lastly, this one's kind of an underwhelming all around, but Nolan Jones was traded for right before the start of the year. Eric's already laughing. He was traded for before the start of the season in exchange for Tyler Freeman. The Guardians sent Tyler Freeman to Colorado for Nolan Jones. I can't figure out why Colorado made this trade. Freeman has 16 plate appearances in 7 games. They have not used him.
It is weird.
So
that is really weird. 16
to make a trade
and really bad.
And I know Jones had a really poor 2024. What were they really losing potentially? But why even make a deal if you're not going to use a guy? Jones, to his point, is slashing again as of Monday. 173, 306, 250. Slugging obviously not happening, which was supposed to be his forte. My view on this is he's been insanely unlucky so far. His xWOBA is 337. League average is 315. His quality of contact is better than league average, yet he's hitting 173 with a 250 slug. He also has a BABIP of 265, which is like 100 points lower than his career BABIP. He is popping up more. His launch angle suggests that, but it just feels to me like that's going to work itself out and just need a little bit of patience. Again, I mentioned Freeman's barely played, but even though Freeman has barely played, he's been worth -3 fielding runs at second base. So I don't know what that's about, but if I've got to make a call here, I think the Guards got the better end of this. But I sure would like to see some balls land in some green for Jones to make me feel a little bit better about it.
I like how Freeman has an abysmal batting average, but has a better on-base percentage. That's hilarious.
That's true. He has walked. To his credit, he has walked. That's about all he's done, though.
All right. Next up, we have, well, There's a couple moves. We can all agree the Tigers did pretty well on the Jack Flaherty trade. Jack Flaherty got his World Series ring. The Dodgers are happy, and the Tigers signed him back. So yes, Lee, the Tigers did well again. Ha 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 ha. That's great. But anyway, what other decisions did they make? And then, yeah,
Yeah, so Tigers didn't really do a whole lot in the free agency. They signed a bunch of pitchers, Jack Flaherty included, obviously. But the more interesting one is they signed Gleyber Torres for second. Gleyber Torres very famously did not want to play any position besides second. Problem is, we had a second baseman. His name is Colt Keith. We signed him for a big extension. So the plan was they announced this like in December or whatever when we signed Torres. All right, so Torres is going to play second. We're going to move Colt Keith to first, and Torkelson has kind of left position that he has to earn his way onto the team. Well, Torkelson heard that and said, "Screw that! I'm going to be an all-star player." So now we're left with second baseman in Torres, who only plays second. Torkelson, who deserves to be playing first all the time, because, I mean, he's been playing phenomenally. I talked about him last week, but, like, come on. He's currently leading the AL in extra base hits. He's second in RBIs. He's playing like an all-star right now. And then so now Colt Keith is kind of left in limbo a little bit. So Torres went down with an injury in game 2, I believe. Like right off the bat, was down for a couple of weeks. And so Keith switched from first to second, and then Torkelson was playing first. And the problem was he was really bad defensively at second because he spent all the offseason prepping to play first defensively. And he hasn't been hitting well. He's been getting on it. He's been walking, but that's gone down too. Question mark for Keith. For Torres, he hasn't played a whole lot because he was injured, but he's been doing pretty good. He had a home run earlier today. He's just been a pretty consistent hitter. He's good, and also it's good to have a veteran guy on the lineup because the Tigers are a very young team, especially offensively. But Torkelson is now the starting first baseman, which is not a sentence I thought I would be saying 2 months ago. So it's kind of really interesting what will come of that as we go on, because the plan was Keith at first, Torres at second, Torkelson at DH, or maybe first, or maybe he'll end up in Toledo. But, I mean, Torkelson deserves to be the primary first baseman now, and Keith is kind of left positionless. So, kind of interesting. I mean, I still like the Torres signing because he's been a good bat, but it is weird. But he's on a 1-year deal. There's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, really. So, who knows what'll come with that. But all the while, I'd say it's still good.
Yeah. Right. Next, we had KC made a couple of moves during the season. Mainly, there was a big trade, so we'll talk about that first, but then they had a couple other signings. So, Sam, what do you think of the Jonathan India for Brady Singer trade?
Yeah, so, obviously the Royals needed to add some sticks into their lineup, and I think that Jonathan India, while he is off to a slow start, is a professional MLB player, and I think he has been someone who, over his career, has been a pretty solid player. Like I said, off to a slow start, but I think he'll turn things around and be pretty good. We know that the Royals have good pitching. We know that they have guys who are Cy Young contenders, and Brady Singer has been a player who, in his career, has been very up and down. He came into the league and had a good year, and then a bad year, and then a good year, and then a bad year, and then a good year. So I think it was probably the right time to sell high on someone like him. And the biggest problem that the Royals had in their lineup last year was probably their leadoff spot. And while India has gotten off to a slow start, he's shown that he has the ability to put together good at bats draw walks, do things of this nature. The interesting thing is that he was kind of brought in to supplant Michael Garcia in that leadoff position. But Garcia has gotten off to a pretty good start this season as well. Um, so it'll be interesting to see. And they did a lot of, with both of these guys, Garcia and India, they did a lot of work in the offseason having them learn to play the outfield. And both of them have played the outfield sort of in spurts to start the season. So I think as we go forward, we'll probably see some combination of India and Garcia at third base and left field. And we could even see a situation where they're playing both of the corner outfield positions. But of course, that all remains to be seen. Singer is off to a pretty good start with the Reds this year. And, I think he's a great player, and I, wish him all the best. I think that the clip of him getting mad because it's raining in Florida is an all-timer, and you can look that up if you want to. Um, but I think Singer, I hope he has a good career, and I hope that he does well in Cincinnati. I forgot where the Reds play for a moment there. Um, But they also replaced him with Michael Lorenzen, and I think that's the obvious replacement for him. Lorenzen came halfway through the year, and he's been the fifth starter for the Royals this season. So, and when you look at those numbers that Lorenzen has put up this season, those are fine numbers. You'll take that from your fifth starter. Those are perfectly, acceptable stats for a fifth starter. But they also replaced him with Chris Bubich. And Bubich has been probably one of the best pitchers in MLB to start the year
Yes.
this year. He has given up. I can't tell you off the top of my head how many runs he's given up this year, but it's been pretty small. Um, he has started out as good as anyone has. He has given up 5 earned runs in 31 innings to start the season. 145 ERA. So uh, Bubic off to a good start. He is boobalicious, as people are beginning to say about him at the beginning of this season. And yeah, I don't hate the trade. Um, but the thing about the Royals offseason is that the fact that that was the biggest move they made shows you that it was a pretty quiet offseason for the Royals. They tried to make some moves, they were unsuccessful, and really what they did was make a couple small moves that have paid off, and moves, not even moves necessarily, but just you know, re-signing Michael Waka was big. Re-signing Michael Lorenzen was a big deal. Um, Signing Cole Reagans to an extension,
Really?
that was a big. Yeah, yeah. Signed Cole
I missed
Reagans
that.
to an extent. Yep, signed Cole Reagans to an extension this offseason. I don't remember what the details were off the top of my head,
I can look
but
it up here.
I can, yeah, signed a 3-year, $13.25 million contract to avoid arbitration. So that was,
Oh,
and if he pitches as well as I know he's capable of, that's going to be as big a steal as any. Um, so that was a great move. And then they made a couple small moves during spring training. Bring in Kevin Biggio in. He's We know what kind of player Kevin Biggio is at this point of his career. He's going to walk. He's going to put up a good on base percentage. He's going to be a professional hitter who puts up good at bats, and he's probably going to hit like 200. And he can play all over the field. So that's a decent little signing there. And then they brought in Mark Canha at the 11th hour of spring training, and he's off to a good start with the Royals. He had a little stint on the injured list, but he came back after 10 days, and he's been solid for the Royals. So not a bunch of big splashes as I think a lot of people were hoping that they would make. But a couple solid little moves that will hopefully point things in the right direction as the season continues.
So you talk about how the Royals had a very quiet offseason. The Twins, if the Royals were quiet, I don't know, deaf, silent, whispering, whatever you would like to call it, because
You
they
could
had
you could
very
hear
little move.
a pin drop in Target Field.
You really could. Well, you can do that now because the attendance
Yeah.
they claim is 10,000, but you look at the stands, it ain't close to that.
Yeah.
But that's a pull ad problem, not me. You get what you get at this point. I don't feel bad for them. So they had really 2 major league deals. They spent a grand total of $7 million. Guys, wahoo. That's not even a crappy reliever money at this point. But don't worry, we got a crappy first baseman in Ty France. They moved on last year from Carlos Santana, who had a really good year from them from a really slow start. He ended up turning it around. He obviously Dan talked about him when he went to Cleveland. He's off to a slow start, but apparently Carlos Santana is notorious for having a slow start, so he's either 39 and about to really go down, or he's about to turn on the bat. Ty France, even though he won Major League or American League Player of the Week, still kind of underwhelming. His OPS is still under 700 by a good click. He's a slap hitter. He's been better than I thought, but he's been far from an impact.
It kind of feels like
He looks good compared to other Twins.
kind of feels like Ty France won Major or American League Player of the Week and then just kind of said, "Yeah, that's my accomplishment for the year."
When you're making $1 million and you were a minor league signing, yeah, you've
he's
earned
like
that.
that'll do.
I'm also not convinced it's not a
Yeah,
make.
he's like that'll do for this season. Player of the Week.
Yeah. And he seems fine. Like I can see some life. If he's just a solid first baseman, that's fine. It seems kind of sad that like the Twins have never. The last time the Twins have had a really good first baseman was Joe Mauer, and he retired in 2017. And it's debatable if Joe Mauer was really a good first baseman. Average defense, he had a good on base percentage, but if you go beyond that, you're talking Justin Morneau, which was over a decade ago. So they do not sign big free agents ever, except for Carlos Correa, and then do nothing for 2 years. But especially like the corner spots, right, left field, the big bat spots, they don't spend a lot of money in because they think they can just get an 800 OPS guy that they can get in, and they just haven't been able to find it. If Ty France can do it, great, but it really hasn't worked outside of Carlos Santana. Next, their big money deal, their $5.5 million bat Bader replaced Manuel Margot, and this one's gone about as well as you can go. I don't hate Harrison Bader by any means. He's a good, gritty, he's a baseball player. He's fast, he's good at defense, kind of lousy on offense, will pop a home run every once in a while. He and Buxton have had, they're both kind of like giving each other finger guns every time they make a nice catch in the outfield. But other than that, he's been a good backup. He's been playing a lot of left field. I will say, watching the Twins defensive outfield has been really fun when you have Bader in left, who's a Gold Glove center fielder. Buxton has been a Platinum Glove winning center fielder, and then people don't know him, but Deshaun Kersey Jr. He's probably not going to have a long major league career, but what got him to the majors is his defense. He's a career center fielder. He's very good. And when he's playing right fielder, it's really hard to beat that defense. It's really fun to watch sometimes. And it came up big yesterday because Buxton made a game-changing defensive, like a game-ending defensive play. The bases were loaded. Benintendi hit the ball in right center one off the bat. The expected batting average was 560, and he made a really nice play on it to end the game, which the Twins would have lost that game if he doesn't make that play. So that's been really fun to see. But Manuel Margot, Lee will tell you this isn't even really a fair comparison for Bader because he's barely played. He's had 6 games and 20 plate appearances. His on-base percentage is still lower than his batting average and is still equal to a slugging percentage, but it's 6 games. It's still wonky.
Yeah,
Lee, do you know when he's coming back?
There's not. So he probably is not going to come back because he probably won't be returning before Vierling gets better. So we probably will not see him because he's like started doing a little bit of rehab stuff, but there's no like timeline. But Vierling is probably going to be coming back in the next couple of weeks, and he's not going to be ready before then probably. So probably the last we'll see of him, I believe. But yeah, Manny Margot is injured center fielder number 4 for the Tigers. So yeah, he was hitting good for the 6 games he played. So
Yeah, I guess it was a 316 batting average. I guess that's good for 6
yeah,
games.
not a really large sample size. He's part of the reason why we got Javi Baez playing a center because he's injured. So yeah, it's like a knee inflammation thing if I remember correctly. He's like doing rehab stuff, but yeah, like I said, Vierling's probably going to be back before him, and we're probably not going to use Margot after that. So.
The one other signing the Twins had, I'm not going to talk about it much. Danny Colome was a left-handed pitcher they got from the Orioles. This is actually his second time back with the Twins. He's been fine. Good left-hander. Comes in the games, does his job just fine. Signed him for like $2 million, I think it what it was. But next up, the White Sox didn't do a whole lot, but the one move they made has an impact, but it's not going to be much for this year. So they traded Garrett Crochet for a whole bunch of prospects. We've already talked about one with Chase Meadroff. Oren, do you want to talk about the rest of the load that they got?
Yeah, so it's looking like a pretty good return. This guy, Chase Meadroff, he's playing second base right now. He's on the injured list, but he seems like he's got a really good eye at the plate and a lot of tools. And he, like Keishel, when we were talking about earlier, he's just a gamer. So good to see that. And he looks major league ready. So it's nice that we don't have to wait around forever to start seeing these guys coming up. The other guys they got from the trade, Kyle Teal, very, very well-regarded catching prospect. Braden Montgomery, pretty good outfield prospect. And this guy Gonzalez is more of a lottery ticket. They need a lot of position players. They need a lot of good position players. So, if one of these guys turns into something, that would be great. If 2 of them turn into something, that would be phenomenal. If 3 of them, it would be a miracle. So that was, the biggest move of the offseason was trading Crochet. They did bring a bunch of other guys in for smaller contracts. Austin Slater, Brandon Drury, Michael A. Taylor, Martin Perez. Pretty much all of those guys are injured. Josh Rojas, injured. So it's nice because we get to see the kind of homegrown guys get some more playing time and get to kind of assess what we have. But it's not nice because we were hoping, some of those guys would turn into trade bait at the deadline. So, I mean, we weren't expecting much of an offseason from the Sox. They actually made more moves than I thought they would or needed to. Of course, Joey Gallo, who took one look at the team and decided he wanted to be a pitcher because they make pitching look really easy. But yeah, it's kind of a meaningless offseason, just treading water until these younger guys get called up. But in the bigger picture, just treading water until we can, change ownership and kind of modernize the way that we use analytics and, all that front office stuff that we're, kind of stuck in the 90s.
Referring to what the White Sox are currently doing as treading water, I find very interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
treading water in the way the Titanic
It's
is
a bit
treading
generous.
water.
Yeah, they're
the same way Jack is treading water.
just about, yeah, I'd say.
The same way that necklace is treading water.
Yeah. That old lady, come on, just sell it. Why you got to throw it into the sea?
Still the
Yeah,
Titanic.
yeah. Those were all Titanic references, Eric.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I looked at every one of you. Was like, who's wearing a necklace? Like, no, okay, I'm an idiot.
I am
But
wearing
you
one.
see, Eric, in the movie Titanic, there's an old lady. She has a necklace, and at the end of the movie, she throws it into the ocean. And there's an alternate ending where she doesn't throw it into the ocean. Have you guys ever seen the alternate ending of Titanic?
Interesting.
It's so bad.
What's
I have
the
not.
ultimate ending? Is it like a
Look it up. Look up after the show. Look up the alternate ending of Titanic and watch it. It's so bad.
I
This
haven't
has me
actually
think.
seen Titanic before.
This
I
has
know
me
what
thinking
happens.
whether or not I would rather take a ride on the Titanic or continue to be a White Sox fan, and I really have to think about it closely.
Yeah. And I think it says a lot about the White Sox, the fact that our conversation of them devolves into us / me making jokes about the movie Titanic.
I mean, what else can you say about them? Like I said earlier, they're on a 45 win pace. Best we could hope for is a couple guys break out in minor ways. The most fun we're going to have is, it's taking 2 out of 3 a few times this season and seeing other fan bases erupt over losing 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. Maybe we'll sweep someone and then they'll be the, laughing stock of the league for a day or two. But outside of that, not much doing.
You did have a good idea though earlier this week. What you just have JD Vance visit Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be very effective.
For those not watching, and JD Vance, I think we can all confirm killed the Pope.
This is a fact.
No further context is needed.
I think
Many people are saying this.
JD Vance has killed 2 things in the last 2 weeks. He killed the Pope, and he killed the national championship trophy.
Yes, I love that. That was hysterical.
That's right.
That was fantastic. He broke the national championship trophy, and it was glorious.
Maybe we could get him in a room with Manfred too, all 3 of them.
All right. Well.
Okay. I'm not.
No
I was going to
segue
say
off.
something really messed up. I'm not going to say that while we're recording.
Is that so that Vance can kill things at a quicker pace, or? Never mind.
Yeah, I have to check if they have MLT.
Hey, let's talk about the
MLB
schedule, guys.
in El Salvador.
God.
All right, so the baseball schedule continues. Not a murderous vice president. So the Guardians, they play the Yankees right now. It looks like as we took the screenshot.
Yeah,
of this,
I did that this morning.
They were beating Cleveland in the top of the second.
Not this morning. Earlier this afternoon.
They go on to play Boston and then have a really big, especially for the Twins, 4-game series next week. And then they finish up with the Blue Jays. Detroit playing San Diego, going to Baltimore, playing the Astros, and then the Angels. Royals finishing Colorado. Houston, Tampa Bay, Baltimore.
And that
The Twins finishing up with the White Sox. Sure looking like they're going to take that series because I did turn the game on now. Right when Buxton hit the home run. Thank you. I was hoping Oren was going to say something, but he didn't. Oh, well. Then they play again. They play the Guardians and then go to the Red Sox. White Sox finishing up with the Twins, going to the A's, Brewers, and then the Astros. That's it. So, as far as predictions go, we only really have one series that we can predict, unless we would like to call the White Sox Twins series. They're in the top of the 9th. The White Sox have 1 at bat. They're down 2, I think. But that's not official yet. So the only the only series we need to predict is Minnesota at Cleveland, just for ranking sake. Oren is actually leading the way right now. Sam, Dan, and Lee all have 5, and then I am last with 4.
That's
So,
because you keep trying to be different.
with that said,
Just conform, and then maybe you'll get more points.
and some days it's going to work. Lee, who you got? Minnesota or
All right,
Cleveland?
so this is really me more manifesting than anything because I would like Cleveland to just start losing. So I'm gonna say that the Twins split the series. I'm gonna say it's gonna be split. Sorry,
Got my
no.
hopes up
I
for
just
nothing.
can Cleveland lose some games. I know it's April and it really doesn't matter, but I'd really like it if we stop doing this flip-flopping thing where we keep switching who leads the division every week. That'd be really cool.
Oren?
I'm going to say Minnesota takes the series. I think they're going to get a nice little confidence boost from playing the Sox, and maybe they'll start to turn things around a bit. And, nobody in this division is allowed to be happy for that long. So now that the Guardians are looking kind of good, I think they're due for a very depressing series.
Sam?
I'm going to call a split here. This is a 4-game series. I'm going to say that it's going to be 2-2. I think like Oren said, the Minnesota will probably get some confidence. They're playing the White Sox and then the Angels. Both of those teams are very bad. And then this is going to be a do or die series for Minnesota. So I will predict that Minnesota will get 2 and Cleveland will get 2.
Dan?
So before I get into it, I want to acknowledge earlier I said the Guards had won 10 out of their last 12. I was actually wrong on that. It's 11 out of their last 15. So my bad. And also, Will Wilson did have a hit today, first major league hit. So oops. But now to actually get to the picks here. The Guardians are 7-2 at home. The Twins are 3-10 on the road. I think the Guardians win the series.
Yeah. My brain tells me Cleveland's going to take this series, but I need to hold on to some hope that the Twins are going to turn it around. Because let's be honest, if they can't start digging out of this hole now, they're not going to. So for the sake of my fandom, I'm pretty sure I said this last week, I need them to start winning some games. So I'm going to predict the Twins are going to take it and just hope and pray that it happens. So 2 splits, 2 for Minnesota, and then Dan, the soul for Cleveland, which I don't think I would have predicted before we did those picks. But we'll see. We'll see. The Twins are starting to show life. I think. Maybe not. Probably not. But we'll see next week. So
honestly, Oren's probably right. Nobody in this division is allowed to be happy for very long. So
this is very true.
That's true. And with that, I think that's all we had for today. So we'll probably be back around the same time next week.
Friend of the AL Central, Luis Arise. Scary moment there.
Oh, that's right.
Does anyone know how he's doing?
I know he's on the concussion protocol.
Yeah, he's
I know he's like.
He did go back into the clubhouse, like after he was carted off. He did go back into the clubhouse and was chatting with people. So that was good.
So it seems like it's going to be all right.
Yeah, and that was a weird play because it looked bad, but it also didn't really look like he really hit his head on anything. So
right.
Glad that he's as someone who's been concussed twice in his life. I hope that all's well for Luis Arise.
Yeah, he was so fun to watch. He's still fun to watch. Whenever I watch a game and he's on, it seems like you can't get a pitch by him without him letting it.
So, I hope Stephen Kwan's arch nemesis gets better soon.
Yeah, those two are always fun. Like when it was only like a year that they really had a duel where Kwan was kind of established, but
it's like we have McGuire and Sosa at home.
Yeah, the AL Central brand McGuire and Sosa.
The boring
the battle of the slackers.
The boring version of McGuire and Sosa.
I think it's riveting, Sam. I don't know what
He's
you're
got to
talking
like
about.
small ball.
Trips dig the long ball.
Not for nothing. Doesn't Quan have like a 905 OPS
He's-
right now?
I was talking about pulling and lifting the ball. The guards teach that. He has learned that, and he has added a little bit of pop to his game. Not going to hit 30, but he's hitting 12, 15 home runs.
I still think it's disgusting. He had to practice how to miss the ball. Disgusting.
He
Stop.
went out of his way to learn how to swing and miss more often and
It's ridiculous.
be okay with it.
It's unfair.
All right. Now, anything else for the betterment of everyone listening? I'm going to take that awkward silence as a no. So on that note, I think we're going to call this one. Like I said, we'll be back around the same time next week. Thank you all for listening. Tune in next time.